What's up, Burn Nation? Welcome to the Burn Bootcamp podcast. My name's Nicole and I am our Director of Field Operations here at Burn HQ. I'm a Navy veteran. I served from May of 2001 until February of 2004, so a little bit ago. But after my time in the military, I went into the defense contracting world, really worked in strategic communications for the Army, for the Navy, for the Marine Corps, anybody who hired our firm. And what I was really focusing on was public relations, marketing, things like that. Luckily, as part of the company I was with, we were an employee-owned company. And when we got acquired by a larger defense contracting firm, I had all of this employee stock at 26 years old that I could have put into retirement fund and had a very cushy balance with right now. But the Navy, I think, built in me an entrepreneurial spirit. And at the time I was living in the DC area and I had 2 dogs and I was recently divorced. So I was taking my 2 dogs to daycare every day and spending thousands of dollars on dog daycare. And so one day I walked in and I said, I would love to do what you guys do. And they said, well, we're franchising. And so the very next day I had signed up for Discovery Day. I think I was at Discovery Day 2 months later, and I was a franchisee probably a month after that. So didn't do very much due diligence, just kind of signed on the line for the brand that I loved. And I moved down to Charlotte to open my Dogtopia. Did that for 10 years, met my amazing husband, had 3 kids, and really just realized that being an owner-operator of a physical location when you're 26 and don't have any kids or responsibility is really not as hard as it is when you're 36 and have 3 kids. So really was just kind of looking for what's next and had a bit of a midlife crisis, talked to my own business coach and realized that what I wanted to do was help people have a better entrepreneurial experience than I did. I'm kind of what I call lovingly a sloppy entrepreneur. As you can tell from my story, I just kind of jumped right in with both feet. It's kind of my modus operandi for life. And so I couldn't spell P&L, let alone know how to read my profit and loss statement. I didn't know how to lead people. Even though I had been in the Navy as an officer, I had never had any direct reports under me just because of the nature of what I did in the Navy. So I had a lot of mistakes that I had to learn on my own. And I didn't want other people to have to go through that. So I went to Queen's University, got my certificate in executive coaching and a master's in organization development, and hung out my own shingle as a business coach. And COVID hit. And so it was really hard to build a business during COVID. And I had a LinkedIn alert out for franchise business coach. More as a business development opportunity. I wasn't really looking for a job. Anybody who's been an entrepreneur knows that it's really hard to then go back and work for somebody else. But I was like, let's see what this is about. Because the Burn job description for a franchise business coach had popped up. So I came in and I interviewed, and I had been a Burn member before. I'd actually joined in 2016. I have 8-year-old twins, and they were 10 months old at the time. And I wandered in with 2 baby carriages, not knowing what to do, where to go. And it was the free child watch, guys. If you don't think Burn sells memberships with free child watch, you're crazy, because it's what got me. And so I knew I loved the brand. I just didn't know if I could work for somebody else. And luckily, the culture that we have here at Burn HQ just sold me from the very first interview on. And the autonomy that I got to do my job and coach my franchise partners has just been so rewarding. And so it's just been such an amazing fit to bring my business experience, my military experience, my life experience to help our franchise partners grow their businesses and serve their communities so that they can impact even more lives. I think the military experiences that help me the most today are actually the ones that I messed up the most, which I think we all learn from our failures more than we do from our successes. But when I was in the military, I was like 23. I was full of spit and vinegar, and you could not tell me that I was doing something wrong. And I think the way that the people who led me helped me realize that that was probably not the best way to show up as a professional really has impacted me to this day in how I lead my people and how I help franchise partners learn to lead theirs. Leadership is actually one of my favorite things to talk about with franchise partners because it's one of the things that I personally have struggled with the most. And I think I've probably had some of my biggest growth opportunities in. So when as I just said, when I was in the military, like I was full of spit and vinegar, and I was probably very difficult to lead. And I certainly wasn't in a position to lead anybody else. So I think they made a good choice in not giving me any direct reports. But then coming in and leading people in Dogtopia, I went about pretty much everything the wrong way. So much so that when I got like a boss's day gift or something from one of my team members, it said, "You can have your opinion, but mine's right." And at the time, I thought that was hilarious. And I was like, that's right. And now I'm so embarrassed by that. But I keep it as a reminder that there are good ways to lead and bad ways to lead. And I think the way that I led my team directly impacted the success or lack thereof, and in different times during the evolution of my time at Dogtopia. And so when I talk to franchise partners about leadership development, I think the thing that helps me is just being able to empathize with where they are and share some of my own struggles and stories and how I've personally grown through leadership development courses, through mentors, through coaches, and just show them that that journey is a realistic one, that who you are today doesn't mean that's who you have to be tomorrow. And I think that relates really well to what we do at Burn. We talk to our members and say just 1% better every day. And that's really what I'm hoping for our franchise partners as well. You don't have to be the Dale Carnegies of the world to lead a good business. You just have to want to get better 1% every day. So it's a long time since I've had to take a physical readiness test or PRT in the Navy. But when I think about what we would do to prepare for those and what we do here at Burn, I think there's a lot of similarities. I also think we would smoke a lot of people if they came to a camp, especially a conditioning camp. Physical fitness is not something that I ever really valued in my life, even though I was in the Navy. I would do everything I could to not have to go to an early morning workout. I didn't prep for my PRTs and to the point where a couple times I had to do remedial PT. Not gonna lie. When I went to flight school, I could not get my sit-ups. I've just always had a weak core. And so I had to literally just come and do sit-ups with people for a while until I could get to the point that they wanted me to. So I think that coming to Burn and experiencing that kind of workout, first as a member and now as a team member, what I like about it is how empowering it is, and how relatively challenging it is. So, as a woman in the military, as a woman in the fitness industry, there can be a lot of stigmas around that, around lifting heavy weights, around doing heavy things. And I've never felt that at Burn. And, I felt it a few times in the Navy, I'm not going to lie. But I love that I can work out on the same floor as Devin Klein, our founder and CEO, a former professional baseball player. And I am a 50-pound overweight mom of 3 who's 25 years out of the Navy, who clearly has not done a PRT in a long time. And we can both get a workout where we have individually left it on the floor. And so, he can be relatively challenged. I can be relatively challenged. And we just get that high five and have that community together where we know that together we just did a hard thing. And I think that is the part of it that makes me think back to the Navy and think back to those PRT days where it was, a celebration of us all doing this hard thing together. I think another similarity that I see between military service and, for me, my time in the Navy and working out at Burn and working at Burn is that you've got to have a lot of self-discipline. You've got to have a lot of get it, want it to really excel. And so when I think back to my time in the Navy, first and foremost, the military is an all-volunteer force, right? So you got to have a little bit of a special mindset to even raise your hand and say, yeah, I'll do that. And then you've got to do all the hard things that go into that. You've got to pass those physical readiness tests. You've got to do all the schooling. You've got to pass all of the tests that go along with that. You've got to do the training. You've got to deploy. You've got to make sacrifices. And then I think about coming to Burn, and while I'm not trying to minimize the sacrifices and the hard work that go into the military and make them the same as what we do at Burn, but I think when I think about how doing those things in the military prepared me for Burn, I think about being in camp and not wanting to do that next rep and not even wanting to go to camp in the first place. I mean, I think you heard me say that I don't like physical fitness. If you had told me 20 years ago that my life would be being in the gym all the time, I would have laughed in your face. But to even show up for camp takes an element of mental fortitude, which is something we use all the time in the Navy. You'll hear the term mental fortitude. To even show up on that floating floor. And so I hope members can recognize what a win that is in their day, just to show up every day and be willing to put in the work. And then when we're on that floor, to put everything we have into it. We've got a great vinyl that we put on the walls that say, "You showed up, now show up." And I think that is so similar to the mentality that we had in the Navy. You showed up, now show up. And you can do hard things. You can put in that last rep. You can get to that finisher, and you can work harder than you have all camp, because what you put into it is what you're going to get out of it. Burn Nation, I have loved spending this time with you. Thank you so much for listening to the Burn Boot Camp podcast. We are going to end it like we always do. 2 claps on 2, 1, 2.